because in the past, men would just like go talk to different women and see like which one they could get. But now I think men are very like uncomfortable talking to women. And then all those stories that trend are like the OnlyFans or like women, you know, cheating or whatever. And that's like the story that's always trending online. So then men are like, oh, well, what's the point of marriage? And then the young women I know are like 22, never been asked on a date. Yeah. And they're beautiful and they're like, a guy's never asked me on a date. I'm a very optimistic person and there's really never been a better time to be in the top 10% of guys or women. And it's never been a better time to shoot your shot because nobody else is.
A few weeks ago, you guys responded quite interestingly to a very controversial new issue of Evie Magazine, the sex issue, that has people's heads exploding all over the internet about what's appropriate to give intimacy advice for married and even married Christian women. A ton of you said, you're never supposed to talk about this ever. How dare you even remotely bring this into the public square? But I think this is a wildly important conversation virtually no one is having out there to tell young married families you should enjoy having sex with your spouse. Take it from an old married lady, okay? It is wildly important. Brittany Hugoboom, the founder of Evie Magazine, is joining us today on the Isabel Brown Show to talk about why this issue is coming out and what was the driving force behind it. Can't wait for you guys to hear what she has to say. Brittany, I am so excited to have you on set with us today to talk about some pretty controversial news coming out of Evie Magazine, but something I think is so desperately needed in our culture, and that is your guys' up-and-coming sex issue of the magazine. But you and I have been friends for a long time. So before we get into the sex issue, can you tell us what inspired you to start Evie Magazine in the first place?
Oh my gosh. So I started Evie, I mean, you probably know, you probably were like an OG reader, but we started back in 2019 and I was living in Los Angeles at the time. And during that time, there was like, it was a super progressive, kind of radical. You had like Refinery 29 and Jezebel, and it was very like man-hating, but also like hating women's nature in general. It became kind of this fourth wave feminism thing. And it's funny now when I talk to journalists, they tell me, they're like, oh, I'm a second wave feminist or I'm a third wave feminist. And these are all the mainstream publications. And I think it's like very fascinating. But at the time, there was just I think that they were able to make bad things look aesthetically beautiful. And there was really nobody making virtue and like positive things like marriage and kids and anything look aesthetically pleasing. And now you have like obviously Ballerina Farm and Nabella and even Justin and Hailey Bieber, and you have all these like good examples of it looking appealing to be married, but at the time there really wasn't. So we wanted to come in and do that. And we kind of had this, because we lived in LA, a lot of my friends were like the girls who would shop at Air One and they wouldn't drink out of plastic because of microplastics. And they were very like, they loved God, but they were like, I don't know. It was just like this type of girl that just wasn't catered to at all. It was very Maha before it was a thing. So we were like very
Maha.
Yeah, it was like kind of the crunchy liberal, the Bernie girls, right? Yep. Like they just didn't want to be part of the system. And I think like in the past, like unfortunately, when I've talked to like the mainstream media, they thought Republicans were very like uncool or like Puritan or whatever. And then obviously with the election in 2016, the winner is like this New York Democrat with a supermodel wife who lives in a golden palace. So it's like nobody was wearing hats for George Bush, you know? Like, so I think that making good things look appealing and sexy and mainstream is just an objective good, because then everyone wants to be like that, you know?
Amen. Oh my gosh. And I have loved every edition that you guys have put out. I've written a few articles back in the day. I sure do, for Evie Magazine. And it's true, you guys were covering Maha way before it was a movement, but just generally like putting your health first and being more natural and organic and leaning into your natural beauty. All of those things were so important. Reviving the importance of relationships, actual legitimate fashion, and not the androgynous brown paper bags we often see at New York Fashion Week these days. There's a sense of reviving beauty, and I've always really appreciated that about you and your family's mission, because beauty does matter, objectively speaking, in society.
I think one of our first articles was the war on beauty back in 2019, and it is like there was kind of this war on beauty, which now sounds weird to say in 2026 because everyone's kind of reverted to kind of what Evie's been doing, but at the time, you just never really saw that. Like it was very like obesity is healthy on the cover of Cosmo and all these things that journalists agreed with me with in person, but then, they had to write that I was extreme or whatever. So I'm like, guys, like it was interesting living in LA and knowing that these journalists were skinny and drinking their green juices and going to Barry's boot camp at 5 a.m. And then they would go write about how amazing it is, like body positive to be huge. And I'm like, okay, let's at least like give people honest advice. So that was like one of the main things why we started Evie.
Well, you're getting a little bit of backlash now all over again. Not from the typical crowd that we often expect from, hating on the more trad conservative or even the controversy of your guys' beautiful milkmaid dresses that you made a few years ago. Now there's a whole lot of people on the right that are upset with Evie Magazine for introducing this idea of the sex issue of the magazine. I covered this a little bit on my show already, but for those who may not understand why you guys decided to launch this and the statement that you put out on social media, what was the impetus behind wanting to put out a sex advice and intimacy advice magazine for Christian married women?
There is this really great girl on Substack, and she probably shouldn't even know that I read her. She's a liberal, and my friend sent me the piece, and she really understands what we're doing in a way that I feel like the right sometimes does not. Because in the beginning, we were the first to talk about the hormonal birth control pill, which was, at the time when I lived in LA, my friends trained the Victoria's Secret girls, and they were all getting off the pill. So all the liberal girls were getting off the pill. So we started writing about it. We talked to Dr. Jolene Bright and all these doctors, and it was a liberal thing, but because Evie wrote about it, it's conservative. And then because we launched the sundress, the Washington Post did a cover, is the sundress political? And it's like, I feel like they just take Pilates. We love now Pilates is like an extremist thing to do. So I feel like they just take whatever Evie says and like turn it into a political thing. And I think it kind of makes the liberals also mad because they're like, what's going on? But when it comes to sex, for years, you either had like the, hook up with whoever, it's super empowering. And then you had like the right side where they're like, oh, don't talk about sex unless it's trauma. Like this was actually told to me by someone who is big on the right. They're like, you're not allowed to talk about sex unless it's sexual trauma.
Someone actually told you that?
One of the big, I'm not going to say which magazine, but it was a big conservative magazine that's been around for like 30 years, but no one really knows about it. But they're like, you can't talk about it. And it's like, okay, marriage back in the day, men wanted to get married, probably because they wanted to have sex and they're also in love, and you couldn't get that access unless you were married. So when the left took over and, have sex with whoever, it's casual, all these things, then it's like, well, how do you, like, what's the point of getting married aside from like loving someone? But the more you have sex with different people, the harder it is to like form a bond. So it's like, why did the right give up one of the most appealing parts of marriage to the left? And then it's like, you have the right, and it's like, oh, well, don't talk about it, don't say anything. And it's like, it's great. Like if you're in a bad mood and you're married and you have sex, like I don't want to talk about it so much even, but it's like, there was really nowhere for these women to go. But it makes your kids happy to see your parents in love. Like that's so important. It makes your stress lower. It's just so good for you. And it's like, it's all about the context, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously a good thing to have sex, hence why it like was created. But it's been turned into like this bad, dangerous, like taboo thing you can't do unless you do it with random people. I don't know. It's just such a bizarre take.
Back to it with Brittany in just a second. But first, I'm so excited to share a message from our friends at Grand Canyon University, an affordable, private, nonprofit Christian university based in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. They say higher education is always outdated, irrelevant, but GCU doesn't settle for the status quo. They shatter it. I've had so many friends go to school here who have had such an amazing experience. And they have found that at GCU, academically rigorous, industry-driven programs are built to move at the speed of relevance with practical skills, career readiness, and opportunity for every learner. GCU believes education shouldn't be a privilege, but an affordable path forward for all. Because of this, they have kept tuition at the same rate on their traditional campus for the past 17 years and are continuing that into the 2026-27 academic year. And they've awarded over $404 million in institutional GCU scholarships this past year in support and encouraging education. Grounded in Christian truth, GCU works to empower the next generation to lead with integrity, to lead with purpose, and help transform our communities, building a future future that matters. GCU is purpose-driven education. You can take action and find your purpose at GCU, private, Christian, affordable, nonprofit. Visit gcu.edu to learn more.
No, you're right. This dichotomy in culture is so jarring, I think, and it's difficult for the right to figure out how to talk about this because we have ceded all of the ground to the left on this issue. Sex is really only presented to Gen Z women right now as something empowering if you are part of this sexual liberation movement. You're sleeping with as many people as possible. You're sleeping with multiple partners at the exact same time. You're meeting people from a dating app and you meet them that night and you end up having sex that night. Then you use abortion as a form of birth control, and that's how you are an empowered, liberated woman on par with or equal to men in 2026. And yet that's not where our culture is at, because young women overwhelmingly want to get married. They want this traditional structure. They're deleting their dating apps en masse right now. They're desperate for a long-term sense of connection. And yet the advice just isn't out there for girls that don't have a big sister or a best friend to talk to about some of this stuff. I just find even in my spheres of influence with my friends and my extended family, people don't talk about sex with their friends anymore. It's not something that you say, hey, this is something that I'm going through with my husband, and what do you guys think? Or do you have any advice for my wedding night or any of these things? So everybody is turning to the Cosmos or the Vogues of the world, telling you to cheat on your boyfriend or your husband, to use things around the house as sex toys. That was a recent Cosmopolitan article. To manage as much as possible. I mean, things that are very taboo to say, but also aren't now, because everything is everything. Like, there is no actual standard for intimacy anymore.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. You took the words out of my mouth.
So Evie is trying to do something a little bit different about it. And this is what I so appreciate about the sex issue. You guys are trying to give specific intimacy advice for married women.
Yes.
What does that mean exactly?
So in the past, I feel like you either had Cosmo, right? Where it's like, cheat on your spouse without getting caught. You know, it's very like, we probably make up stories, like, in all honesty. Like, it's just very like out there. It's kind of like what the mainstream's doing right now with polygamy. It's like, does anyone really want to be polygamous? Like, you know, but I feel like they just like to do that stuff. But it's like, I think I lost my train of thought.
No, actually, while you're saying that, this is so important. I literally was sent from our PR team here yesterday a new Pew Research poll that just came out about things Americans view as morally acceptable or morally unacceptable. And most things that are not great for society are considered acceptable, except cheating on your spouse. Overwhelmingly, people still think that is a morally bad thing to do. It is immoral. And yet, every headline out there is cheat. Cheat on your husband, cheat on your boyfriend, cheat on your wife, sleep with as many people as possible, have an open marriage, do this polygamy or polyamory thing. It's crazy to me that that's presented as normal.
I think it's because it's so like clickbaity. Like, people are like, that's crazy, and they just like click on it. But it's like, it is like a problem with guys in their early 20s. So a lot of them don't want to get married, and a lot of them are like, oh, my friend's girlfriend cheated on me. Like, there's like a huge cheating problem. I don't know what it is in the early 20s, where it's like men don't want to commit because they're afraid of being cheated on.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's like very
So you think this is more a problem of women cheating on men than the other?
I don't think so necessarily. I think maybe it's getting closer in the early 20s. I think probably men did more overall. I don't know the stats. I mean, it's wrong no matter who does it.
Yeah,
but it's just interesting. It's not something I don't think the millennials really thought about a lot, but it seems to be more of a problem with like the younger Gen Z.
So that is a huge component of the intimacy advice that is out there, is just don't lock yourself down in a committed monogamous relationship. Obviously, you're trying to counter that through this marital issue of the sex issue, but what else is out there in terms of advice for married women that you guys are trying to tackle?
Yeah, there's really nothing. And we get so many texts and like emails and girls that were like, I'm struggling with like vaginismus, for example. And they're like, I don't really know where to go. And I spent my whole life thinking that sex was bad. And then immediately I get married and I have to think it's the best thing ever. And I can't psychologically switch. So then they like don't enjoy it and they're uncomfortable doing it and they don't really know where to go or who to turn to. So it's really like the ultimate sex book. It definitely is not for everyone. It is explicit in how-tos. But I think that It's great. It'll be a great gift to give to people on their bachelorette before they get married.
As I'm sure you're picking up from our conversation with Brittany today, public discourse these days can feel downright chaotic. Between the nonstop noise online of all kinds of crazy stuff and the pressure to always say the perfect thing, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or tongue-tied. If you've ever stopped and thought, I want to speak the truth with grace, but I'm not sure how, then you absolutely need to check out Father Gregory Pine's new book, Training the Tongue. My copy is currently on the way in the mail, and I cannot wait to read it. It is going to be my number one piece of literature sitting on my nightstand at night. And I'm so excited because this isn't just another book about communication. It's actually a call to action, packed with real practical wisdom. Training the Tongue challenges each of us to take ownership of our words and to rediscover what it means to speak with purpose. In a time when our outrage often drowns out understanding, Father Pine is reminding us that our voices can build stronger families, communities, and even restore faith in institutions that hold our country together. So, to all of my fellow Americans trying to live out their values boldly and faithfully in public and professional life, this one is for you. Learn how to speak with truth, lead with conviction, and bring a little more order, reason, and charity back into the conversation. Grab your copy today at stpaulcenter.com/training.
That's a great idea. I hadn't even thought about that. And it is interesting to hear this idea that we're presenting a sexual encounter as an always bad, like a black and white, it is bad, and then all of a sudden it is good. When you articulated so beautifully a few minutes ago that sex is a gift from God. It was created on purpose for a reason. And I had heard one teacher growing up in Catholic high school talk about this. That was pretty much it in our morality class. It was a mandated theology class that we took in high school. And he said, ultimately, no one will ever tell you this in culture, but having sex with your spouse is supposed to be the closest physical sensation we have to what it's like to be in heaven.
Yes. I was going to quote that.
I never thought about that before. And that totally changed my perspective when I was like 15 years old and we were talking about this. Why do you think the church isn't presenting it that way to young people, especially young Christians?
It's a good idea. I think they've the strategy is just really bad. It's kind of like with the pill. People are like, oh, the church has talked about it for decades, but it's kind of irrelevant because nothing happened. And I remember when I was like 14 or 15, you hear like, oh, sex is bad, blah, blah, blah. But then Adriana Lima was like, I'm waiting till marriage because if a man doesn't wait for me, he doesn't want me. And like to see someone who's so powerful and beautiful and can have any man in the world and she's like, I'm not going to do it. Like I was like, wait, what? Maybe like that's like inspiring instead of just like, don't do it, it's bad, it's bad. And it's almost why, unfortunately, I have a lot of friends who are priests and a lot of the more traditional circles such a huge issue. And I saw this really great thread from Gif Lofta, and he was talking about how Christian men can have a harder time quitting because they're just told that their nature as men is evil. Like lust is bad, obviously, so the male sex drive is bad in general. And then when you look at guys who I want to say are more like, they like Christianity, but maybe they're not fully into it, but they're more logical, then they're like, oh, like alcohol is bad objectively because of this, porn is bad objectively because of this, so I don't watch it. But they're able to look at it more from a health issue type of thing versus like, this is bad, your nature is bad, etc.
Your nature is bad.
Yeah. I feel like the church kind of treats men as defunct women. And I feel like women were kind of treated as defunct men with fourth wave feminism.
Oh, what do you mean by that? Explain that.
I feel like women were told that their gifts as women, like being beautiful, charming, etc., which is like a beautiful, powerful thing, is weak compared to like your intellect. Like they're like, oh, if you have a high IQ or whatever, you're smarter. But then the fall happened because the woman wanted knowledge, you know? So it's almost like this weird thing. I'm doing a whole thesis on it to try to get into it. But you're almost told that everything that makes you a woman makes you weak. So dress more like a man, act more like a man in order to succeed. And that was in the 2010s. And men in churches are often told like, oh, anything male is like bad. So then be more kind of like women.
Like
I feel
the toxically masculine thing.
Yeah, it's like masculinity is toxic. And it's like they focus more on kind of men issues and like sins overall.
What a powerful perspective when you really consider the fact that we are created in the divine image of God. Our nature was given to us for a reason, on purpose. And to bring this back to the sex and intimacy conversation, the longer I've been married, and I know I'm still pretty new at this, so I'm still learning on the job, the more I've realized that even the marital act of intimacy itself is supposed to reflect our nature as men and women. Men give, women receive, and what women receive, they will multiply. They will create something out of as we create babies and bring new life into the world. Why do you think we're not quite as explicit in our conversation about that, and we instead just never address the physicality aspect of how God created us?
I don't know. And it's very interesting. I think it's more of an Americanized idea because when you go to Italy or other countries that I guess are more Catholic, it is like you see like beauty and nudity, like they're just more comfortable with it. But because we were formed more in a Puritan kind of Quaker way, it's a little bit more, you're either one extreme or the other. And I feel like that's not good for society overall to either be like, oh, everything is bad, you know, all this stuff. And then to be like, oh, it's empowering to sleep with everyone in the world. Like there's just not really a normal middle ground.
I'd never considered that with the different denominational roots of our country, but that is a fascinating concept. The old joke is that a good Catholic family has like 8 kids and you get pregnant right away after you get married. When I'll tell a good story about that. When my husband and I found out we were having our baby, originally we had planned on trying to be like married for about a year and then we would start having babies, but we would be open to if a baby came before then. And 2 months exactly to the day of our wedding, I peed on the stick and I found out I was having a baby. And I was in complete shock, genuinely. My cycle had been all over the place because I'd been dealing with some health issues. So I did not think that was physically possible at the time. And I didn't know how to tell my husband. And he was so overjoyed, obviously, but also in complete shock. Like the cute little videos that you see of, finally, oh my gosh, that was not our experience finding out that we were having
very
a baby.
fertile.
Oh yeah, and it is good. I somehow also had like totally convinced myself that I was going to have a really hard time getting pregnant for some reason. And a lot of my friends have this same mentality. I think it's because so many of our loved ones, our sisters, our cousins, our friends are really going through a hard time. And so you just assume it's going to take me years and years and years to get pregnant. Did not happen. So fair warning, it can happen pretty quickly. But we sat there and my husband is like exploding at the seams trying to process this information. And he's like, we have to tell somebody. We have to tell somebody. I cannot keep it in. And I'm looking at him saying, babe, lock it up. You got to wait at least a couple months. Please, I got to try to wrap my head around this. And he begged and begged and begged for a few hours and said, can I call Mitchell? Mitchell and Savannah are our best friends.
Aww.
And I said, yeah, okay, we can tell Savannah and Mitchell. They're not going to tell anybody. So we FaceTimed them and we held up the stick and everybody was so excited. And we said, I'm not going to lie, guys, we're kind of having a hard time wrapping our heads around this. And Mitchell said, guys, what are you talking about? There's no reason to be nervous about this. There's a name for this, getting pregnant 2 months after your wedding. And we said, what? And he said, Catholic, it's fine. And we all instantly started cracking up. It broke all the tension and it was fine completely after that. There was no freaking out anymore. This is what God was calling us to. So the old joke is that Catholics get married right away. They have a bunch of babies all the time. If you see a family with 10 kids in the pew and they all look the same, that's the Catholic way of life. So I do think there is an interesting element with young people embracing Catholicism at an unprecedented rate right now, how that might change how we look at intimacy. What do you think about that?
I think it's huge. I mean, in New York City, like when in the 2010s, like I was always going to Latin Mass. I got married in the Latin Mass by an exorcist. So I was like OG before everyone like,
very
knew about
OG
it.
trad path. We love it.
Very trad path. But we were introducing, you know, the Latin Mass to like people in Hollywood. And then in the late 2010s, like 2020, there became a big scene in New York where everyone started going to the Latin Mass. And now like the churches in New York are just swarmed and they're beautiful. Like you have like Holy Innocents, you have Old St. Patrick's Cathedral. A lot of the young people go and that one's more traditional. And then you also have the one on the Upper West Side, which is more Broadway singers and stuff, but it's always like 1,000 people too. And it's like, there's this huge resurgence of Catholicism in New York. And I think that I saw a joke once saying Catholics and Mormons have some of the best aesthetics. And I'm like, I kind of see that when it comes to religion in some ways, where it's like, when you go to Italy, like everyone's like an Alessandro Rich and they're dressed to the nines and they're in a beautiful dress and they're just like effortlessly, I don't know, they're just like effortlessly beautiful. They like go to mass and the churches are gorgeous and inspiring. And it's like, I want to go to a church that inspires me. I want to go somewhere beautiful. And in other states, more kind of like on the West Coast or Middle America, when I would go to church, it just felt very, I know it's like the Eucharist no matter what, but it just felt like very like a school auditorium.
Yeah.
And so then there weren't a lot of Catholics in some states where I lived at because it's like, how could there be? And then you see these smart guys, even in SF and stuff, and they're kind of like turning towards it because I think Gen Z really wants a tradition.
They do, yeah.
Like, I don't know, if I want to learn about another religion or whatever, I'd want to be in the most traditional, authentic part. And sometimes with various churches, they're different depending on where you are, you know?
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere. Real quick, you guys know how incredibly picky I am about what I put in my body, especially with supplements. And I am so over the junk brands that pretend to care about women, but end up cutting every single corner behind the scenes. That's why I love our friends at We Heart Nutrition, a family-owned company from Jacob and Kristen that uses research-backed, highly bioavailable ingredients without any cheap fillers or artificial colors or sketchy proprietary blends. Plus, they third-party test everything for purity and for heavy metals. I have been way more diligent the last 6 months or so, taking my supplements every single day, and I have noticed a huge change in just the baseline of how I feel on a day-to-day basis. So much of that is thanks to We Heart Nutrition. The best part is about their mission, they donate 10% of every single one of their sales to pregnancy resource centers across the country, supporting women and families choosing life. And they've already given over $1 million doing exactly that. From preconception and pregnancy to postpartum, perimenopause, and beyond, they have targeted formulas for your specific season of life, plus essentials like true magnesium glycinate for sleep and stress, hormone support with clinically studied saffron, omega-3s, probiotics, immunity, and gentle iron that's actually easy on your stomach. If you're not sure where to start, you can take their quick 30-second quiz to get personalized supplement picks for your stage of life. Go to weheartnutrition.com, take the quiz, and use code Isabel for 20% off your first order. That's weheartnutrition.com. Use code Isabel for 20% off.
I also find it interesting that as I'm talking with more of my friends who didn't get married in the Catholic Church, they had a Christian wedding, but it was officiated by a pastor or outside or not centered around a traditional liturgy. They didn't have to make the same vow and same promise that I had to make to my husband, insisting that matrimony as a sacrament means you are open to children. You are trying to bring children into the world. That is something that we have to promise in a Catholic marriage, that we are open to life and we will raise our children in the church. That's part of the Catholic marriage tradition. And you stand up there in front of God and everybody that you love, promising that that's something you're going to engage in. And I don't hear that as a traditional part of more Protestant-oriented Christian weddings. And I wonder how much that impacts the intimacy experiences that you have with your spouse. Because I know plenty of my very traditional, very politically conservative Christian friends that are not Catholic who are on the birth control pill, or they're not doing natural family planning and tracking their cycles and understanding this is when I'm fertile. And they're having a much more difficult time with the marital union than I often hear from a lot of my friends in the church, because we know exactly what sex is supposed to be about. It is about bonding you with your spouse, but it also is something you promised to do, which is to try to create new life and bring children into the world. What's your take on that?
I will give the Protestants a prop for something. Obviously, I'm Catholic, but I do like that the Proverbs 31 wife is like such like this Protestant girl thing.
It is, yeah.
But I love it because I feel like it's like, it inspires them to be better. And I feel like sometimes in the church, at least, 10, 15 years ago, maybe not as much now, you're just told like everything is bad.
Yeah.
But like to be like, oh, I want to be more like this Proverbs 31 woman, I think is a good thing.
It is beautiful.
And then obviously too, Mary, of course, I know she's like the epitome of a woman in many ways, but her perfect humility versus like, the fallen angel's perfect pride. And then she's the one who he fears the most, which is very interesting, that shift. But I know Catholics do respect her a lot, which is amazing.
I'm curious to get your take on this idea that anything goes with sex today. There are no rules culturally, at least from a secular perspective. Anybody can do anything. And yet also Gen Z is having statistically extremely low rates of sex. Teenage sex is at the lowest rate it's ever been in modern history. Premarital sex in general is just not very common right now, which is shocking, I think, for most people to hear, because everybody assumes, well, if you can just do anything, why isn't everybody doing anything?
Right.
What do you think about that?
I think without any sort of rules, like you almost don't want to do anything because there's just so, like, it's kind of like when you used to go to Blockbuster and then you'd be like, oh, I want to watch this movie, and you had it like a limited option. And now it's like you turn on the TV and you're like, there's so many options, I'm just going to turn it off because I don't know what to watch. And I kind of feel like that right now with social media. It's like there's this illusion of options where people feel like they have unlimited options. And I've talked to people in real life who do feel like this, because the average woman gets 800 swipes a month on a dating app. And then the
800?
Yes, that's just the average woman.
What?
Yes.
Okay, this is crazy.
I've never been on a dating app.
I haven't either. Wow.
Yeah. And then the average man sees more beautiful women in his lifetime than kings ever did 200 years ago just by scrolling Instagram for 10 minutes. So it's like a lot of them think that they have an illusion of options. And then a lot of women are like, oh, like, you know, if it doesn't work out with this guy, I have like 799 more guys who will take me out. But getting a guy to find you attractive or want to sleep with you isn't really like a tough thing to do.
Mhm.
It's not really anything. But getting a guy who like, you're his everything and he falls in love with you and he adores you, that's like actually requires you to become more virtuous. And I think that's what every woman wants. Like if you look in the past couple decades, like some of the highest selling books, I always say this, were like Twilight and 50 Shades, which is like, you know, the, how do you say it? Where it's like a reiteration of, it's like a Twilight, but like a
I know what you're
inappropriate one.
saying, but I'm having a mom brain moment. I
Yeah.
don't know what the word is.
Gosh, mom brain
Yeah.
like kills you. But the man in Twilight, he could kill Bella, but he will not do it. He fights everyone in his path in order to be with her. He's obsessed with her and she's like his everything. And also with 50 Shades, like he dominates her and stuff, but he like doesn't look at other women. She's like his everything. And women ultimately want to be the guy that this incredible guy chooses and like is like the object of his desire. Like that's just like human nature. And with men, when you look at like, if you read like the Divine Comedy in college, there's Beatrice, or like when you watch Braveheart, like his love interest, he's like fighting for her the whole movie. It's like when men see a woman, he sees her as like this perfection. Like men actually have, I think women get confused because they see men on X called Margot Robbie mid. But
I'm still shook by this information, by the way.
It's
now everyone's also saying Timothée Chalamet is sexier than Henry Cavill, which I don't understand. But Margot Robbie, mid, I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's like everyone is mid anyways. But when a man actually loves a woman, like he doesn't see any of her flaws. And then women, if you look at like women love stories, like women want a man to see her flaws, like in The Notebook and stuff. It's like, love me for who I am. And it's kind of goes back to Adam and Eve, where Eve arrives and Adam says she's good. So the first thing that happens to Eve when she arrives into the world is she's judged by a man. So women subconsciously always think they're being judged, even though she was judged righteously.
Interesting.
So it's just like, it's very interesting because women are always like, oh, like, you know, I'm like, oh, my, you know, from pregnancy or this or that. But it's like men don't really see that because they see you as this idealized form. But it's only for a woman that he's in love with. So then if men aren't dating or people aren't dating and the sexes kind of hate each other, then it's just kind of a bunch of just hating.
Yeah, no one's really invested in wanting that deeper union with
and they don't believe in it, which is really sad, especially as a romantic. Like I want everyone to find love. And a lot of people just don't believe it. And even my little brother like didn't believe in love. And then he met his wife and he was like, she's incredible and perfect, and fell in love and got married, and they're having a kid next month. And she's just like a ride or die. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's just like amazing. And it's like a lot of men and women are like, where is my person like that? And it's getting harder to find, sadly.
In the midst of how much our culture has totally twisted what sex is supposed to be all about, we've also normalized abortion. And right now, in towns and cities across the country, women are being pressured and pushed into making life-ending decisions for their children in moments of fear and confusion. These women are told, you have got to decide right now, as if love, hope, or motherhood as a process can be rushed. Many of them feel trapped, like there's no real choice at all. But because of people like you, there is. With our friends at Preborn Network Clinics, a woman is met not with pressure or judgment, but with real compassion, the kind that gives her room to breathe. She's offered a free ultrasound, the chance to see the little life growing inside of her, and real support to help her say yes to that life. Seeing my daughter on an ultrasound screen for the first time totally changed my entire perspective about what it means to be pro-life, even as a lifelong pro-lifer myself. But getting to wave to my daughter's tiny hand on the screen and count all the bones in her fingers and toes truly solidified that this was not a clump of cells. This wasn't this abstract idea. What I was seeing on the screen was my baby, worthy of my protection, my commitment, and my support. And here's the incredible thing. When any mom sees her baby on the screen, more than 80% of the time she chooses life, not out of guilt or out of fear, but out of love for her baby. This March, Preborn is hoping to save 6,800 babies. And to do that, we need 124 people like you and me every day to say, yes, I'm in. Just $28 provides one ultrasound. $140 helps 5 different moms. Every little bit counts. Every dollar is a way to love both both mother and child. So maybe hit pause on your day for a second and continue being one of those 124. To give, just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 keyword baby, or visit preborn.com/Isabel. That's preborn.com/Isabel to make an impact on generations to come.
Yeah, I do see a lot of that. And there's a lot of people who watch my content and watch the show who are still single and they're in their later 20s or early 30s. And they love when we're posting about our family experience and raising a baby and our marriage and all these things. But there's a lot of women who comment on my stuff who say, I want this desperately and I'm doing everything I can to go find it, but it just doesn't appear to be out there at all. And I've always loved that about Evie because it's giving people tangible solutions to go try to find someone through young adult church groups or through these in-person speed dating events that are now making a comeback and all of these things. But I think that you see opportunities to connect with people where they desperately need it the most and where our culture is really hungry for the right advice in the right spaces. This being a perfect example of that as well. When you announced this, people were big mad at you and Evie Magazine.
They're always mad at me.
I know, what else is new? But largely because of the cover. And so I'm interested to get your take on why the cover looks the way that it does. For those who might not have seen it, we have a printout of it because we don't have the actual copies yet. They're still in print. But there is a beautiful model posing here in what I think is a very classy position. You can't see anything wildly suggestive. This was very intentional hand placement. Well done. And she's so obviously in bridal lingerie. To me, this is her wedding night, obviously. And yet people said this was like not a Christian or not a conservative thing to do. What's your response to that?
I mean, we're not a Christian magazine. But we're a mainstream magazine. But obviously, like, you know, there are things where you're like, oh, interesting. But I was actually surprised because when you go to the beach or anything, like, you know,
you're gonna see more skin than that.
Way more than that. And I wore that corset for Halloween. It's like from a famous store that does like corsets for films. And I was like, oh, everybody loves like Wuthering Heights coming out, which that version wasn't as good as the Tom Hardy version. But like everyone loves corsets. They watch Bridgerton or whatever, Pride and Prejudice. Like I genuinely didn't think a corset was going to be scandalizing, but I did sell that sundress that people said was basically lingerie and the milkmaid dress that was practically. So I'm like, at this point, everything is a new everything is racist.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
You think everything, like people are just looking to scandalize things that aren't now?
I think people have equated sex with, and they should not be equated. And there's this really dumb quote. I don't know if you ever saw it years ago. There's this guy named Bap on X, Bronze Age pervert, but who was like a influential intellectual or something.
Or something. Twitter
I don't know.
Who knows what that actually
Twitter
means?
Intellectuals are an interesting kind. But so there was a picture, do you know Ava Lauterbrook?
Yeah, she's the best.
She's incredible. She has a photo in a dress holding milk. And he comments, you might as well do, it's more honest. And so now every like contrarian single girl in their 30s is like, you might as well do, it's more honest than whatever this is. And I'm like, guys, if everything is, then nothing is. Like, it's like cringe and all this stuff. But it's like, by saying like a milkmaid dress is, or a girl holding milk in like a modest dress that she was in is, it's just like, you guys are losing the plot.
I'm so confused by this, to be honest with you.
But the fact that people are saying that sex equals is, they've just lost the plot.
Do you think that's just an overcorrection to our society saying everything should be sex? Interesting.
Maybe, yeah.
In this issue, you say that you are going to be giving very specific advice.
Yes.
I don't want to necessarily get too much into that because I don't want to give away everything that's in there. But what can people generally expect to read in here?
It's very explicit advice. There's beautiful illustrations, beautiful photography, but it's definitely like to give to a bachelorette, and like it's for the girls.
Yeah.
It's not for the guys, but I think it's gonna help you learn to really enjoy, which you shouldn't necessarily need a book to do it, but I think that it is good for a lot of women who did grow up more traditionally and didn't have anywhere to go afterwards.
Where do you think people, like historically, would have been having these conversations before there was a need for this in more traditional circles?
I think in Europe, it's like kind of a no. I don't think that it would be an issue in Europe. I don't know when it comes to America. I don't think there really ever has been.
Well, maybe let me rephrase that. Where do you think before our culture said you were not supposed to talk about this, where were women getting this type of advice? Like who were they talking to? Who were they asking?
I think women were mostly getting married younger. I think everyone was getting married kind of younger and learning together and stuff. And I think that it was just like a different time. Now it's just a whole different. It's hard to compare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who have said that what you're suggesting to tell women that they should be enjoying sex with their husband is scandalous in and of itself. And that's an evil thing for you to suggest that women should be enjoying sex with their husband. That's insane, obviously. What's your response to that?
Just people are not going to make it. But yeah, I was saying earlier, I think that in the past, you got married because you're excited to have sex, obviously for other reasons as well. But the problem is today, you don't need to get married for sex. So then it's kind of like, well, then you're not really sure, aside from obviously you want to grow old with them and have kids and grandkids and stuff. But like there are guys who are like, oh, I can have 12 kids with like 5 different wives. And then they haven't like I think there's going to be a generation of daddy issues because of that problem, because people don't realize how important it is for a good father in the home. But back in the day, I don't think people really needed this advice because they're like, oh, I'm getting married. I'm excited to have sex. It was just like they were psychologically excited for it because it was the only time you could do it. Yeah. Like marriage is the only place where you can have sex with someone that differentiates your relationship from like your friends, you know?
Yeah, true. Otherwise, it's just a non-romantic companion, ultimately, which is a different type of relationship.
Yeah.
It's probably why we say you're not actually married until you consummate the marriage. Like that is where a legitimate marital union comes in. It's interesting you bring up men wanting to have children with as many wives as possible. I'm seeing a lot of that in the alpha male red pill bro podcast space right now. And I think it goes hand in hand with this resurgence of the technological replacement of sex to create babies. In China, they're creating birth robots right now that will be on the market for $14,000 a pop. Insane. There are startup companies in places like San Francisco that are trying to make babies entirely derived from stem cells in petri dishes so that sex is not necessary, like a sex chromosome being given by a wife and a husband is not necessary to create a new baby. And so you're almost watching like the outsourcing of sex entirely and the purpose that it is for, to create new life and create new children, to a robot or to some sort of scientific replacement in a laboratory in a very sterile, harsh, certainly non-loving experience. Do you think that has anything to do with why people are having less sex right now? And how can we recapture putting sex back where it is supposed to be in a loving marital union?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the issues happened during COVID. I think that everyone was home, and a lot of guys that I've talked to that are younger say that they don't even feel comfortable talking to a woman because he might get rejected, which is a very interesting phenomenon because in the past, men would just like go talk to different women and see like which one they could get. You know, my husband has a guy friend who's like, I'm going to find the prettiest girl in the room. I'm going to talk to her. And I was like, he always pulls like beautiful, great women. So I'm like, this guy.
At least he's trying, right?
He's so confident. He's like, that girl's pretty. So I'm going to talk to her. I'm like, you go. But it's just funny. But now I think men are very like uncomfortable talking to women. And then all those stories that trend are like the OnlyFans or like women, you know, cheating or whatever. And that's like the story that's always trending online. So then men are like, oh, well, what's the point of marriage? She sleeps with, you know, the body count thing's like a thing now. She sleeps with 100 men anyway. So she's not even gonna be bonded to me. And then they're just kind of like giving up on it. And then the young women I know are like 22, never been asked on a date.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. And they're like, a guy's never asked me on a date. Even like my brother's wife had never been asked on a date. And she was 23. And he asked her to go to dinner and it just had never happened. So really, I'm a very optimistic person. And there's really never been a better time to be in the top 10% of guys or women. And it's never been a better time to shoot your shot because nobody else is.
Yeah. Chris Williamson talked about that the other day. Statistically, if men just ask a woman on a date, like I don't want to paraphrase his quote too much because I don't remember the number, but 90+% of the time, a woman will say yes because you just asked. Like you just put yourself out there, period. And nobody's doing that, which I find really interesting. And the body count conversation is an interesting one as well, because I really do believe we've created this inflated artificial reality of what a normal number of partners sexually you've had before you get married is. Stuff like the Whatever podcast, or what's the one out of Miami, the Fresh and Fit podcast, and even people like Bonnie Blue on YouTube making videos, or OnlyFans I should say, making videos saying that she's slept with 100 men in 24 hours or whatever. That is presented as normal. And I actually think the vast, vast, vast majority of young women don't have sexual encounters before they're getting married, but we've created this cultural norm that is what's expected. In terms of promoting sex in the right way then, and how we can speak to those women who are seeing that as normal, that's out there, and thinking, oh, that's scary. I don't want anything to do with that, but that seems to be what everybody else is doing. How can we preserve their beauty, their virtue, their virginity, and their innocence in a beautiful way until they have this marital union, while also still looking forward to sex as a good thing?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the Adriana Lima quote I went back to. It's like, if women realize, like, women ultimately, they want to be adored, they want to be loved, and men want to be respected and everything. And if a woman a lot of times will have sex because they think that will keep the man, and that's not necessarily true. But if they just learn, like, just be a virtuous woman, be as good as possible, and he's going to be drawn to you. And if he loves you, he will wait for you, and he will want to marry you because he loves you, but also, like, he'll want to have sex, and that's, like, the only way he can. I think that's pretty powerful.
The other problem I saw you talk a lot about with the backlash to all of this, and in our last couple of minutes, would love to see your reaction to this now, is this epidemic we're having of sexless marriages. So this is a huge problem, and nobody is really talking about it, but they're doing tons of research right now that even happily married couples are not so happy necessarily, because once you do get married, and this is supposed to be a beautiful part of your relationship, people aren't having sex anymore once they're married. What did you learn about that, and what were you telling people about it?
I didn't realize that only 18% of women have orgasms, which is very low. And I think that maybe they don't enjoy it because maybe they never learned how to, I don't know. It's interesting. But it is a problem, and it's like nobody wants to talk about it. And there is kind of like this Catholic thing that I won't get into, where it's like, where you kind of like own each other's bodies. You know, I always joke, like, you know, you can do whatever you want to your husband because you own his body. That's like a Catholic thing. Not whatever you want, but you know what I mean? But there really isn't, it's odd. It's almost treated as like this, I don't even know how to describe it.
Like a taboo thing, even in
it's like
marriage.
this huge issue. And it's like, if you are in a fight or whatever, and you have sex, you're probably going to be happier. You're probably going to feel better. Your kids are probably going to see you in a happier relationship. So it's like, it's an objective good thing in your marriage. And you used to have to get like permission from, I think, like the bishop years ago, if you had to leave your spouse for like 2 or 3 weeks because you're supposed to be having a lot of sex. And I posted once on Twitter that it was crazy that some woman didn't have sex with her husband for a year. And I got so much backlash for that. And I was like, it was
People
a year.
were mad at you for saying that's
they were
a problem.
like, what if, you know, she has this and she has this issue and she's tired and this and stuff. And I'm like, I understand when you like have kids and, you know, you wait 6 weeks and all this stuff, but it just seemed like
a year is a long time.
A year is a long time. And I know a couple marriages that did happen to, and they did end up divorced. And like the guy doesn't want to be intimate with his wife if she doesn't want to. Like guys don't want to feel like, guys want to be desired. They don't want to feel like they're forcing their wife to do something. So then they just kind of get depressed. And then, yeah, it just seems like a bad move overall.
Totally agree. And I'm really glad you guys are starting to tackle this. I'll end with this fun question. I'm a big sister, so I give a lot of big sister advice to a lot of the people who are watching the show. And when we got married, we asked people for their advice for our marriage or whatever, and they put it in a cute little jar at our wedding and did all that. I won't name them by name, but one of our best friends in a married couple, they were married before us, put on a little piece of paper, their only piece of marital advice for us was to fight naked. And then you'll stop fighting pretty much instantaneously, and whatever you were fighting about probably doesn't matter too much. We don't always put that into practice, obviously, in our house, but I thought that was so fun and such a simple, easy way to reduce all the tension in your house, and we always laugh and think about them when we're halfway through a fight. What would you say is your big sister piece of advice to those who might be watching?
That's fantastic advice, and I either tweeted it or thought about tweeting it like 5 times.
There you go, yeah.
So that's hilarious. You know, I think when you're always selfless, and one thing I said, I don't know, did you ever see my tweet with my anniversary tweet that everyone got mad about? Okay.
Tell us about it, though, for those that didn't see it.
So I posted a tweet. It was my 6-year wedding anniversary. I literally spent months trying to get my husband a gift. I'm like such a gift giver. That's like my love language. I got him like this beautiful engraved like iron knife because iron was like the theme of the 6-year wedding or whatever. And then he took me to like a nice hotel and stuff. We had a great time. We swam in the ocean. I was called the female Andrew Tate, asserting my superiority upon the world. And all these men were like, oh, she's trying to make all the women feel bad. But it was like...
For what? Saying happy anniversary to your husband? But what?
So I'm looking and my husband's like reading it on the couch, laughing. And like on TikTok, you know, you have the Dubai moms and they're buying like a ruby at like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday for like $300,000. But for some reason on Twitter, people like get upset about everything. So my husband's like reading this, laughing. He's like, I don't think the girls are mad. I think like the guys are mad. One of my responses to one of the people upset, she was like, hey, like I really want a marriage like yours. And you guys seem to have a great relationship. What should I do? And I said, wake up every morning and write 5 things you're grateful for. And always include like your husband and your kids. Because when you're always in a gratitude mindset, you're more successful. You're a better wife. You're a better guy. Like you're just better in general. And then people like took that out of context and they're like, what a terrible piece of advice for like women. And I was like,
dare you be grateful?
I was like, I thought of that. I thought of that in 5 minutes. And that is 5 seconds. That is great advice. Like wake up every morning. And when you start the day grateful, your entire day is amazing.
Dennis Prager taught me years and years ago that gratitude is the source of all happiness. And
It's
if you
true.
can orient your whole day around that, your entire life will be changed as a result.
You cannot be grateful and depressed at the same time.
I love that. Brittany, where can people get their hands on a copy of, not to be too graphic, get their hands on a copy of the sex issue of Evie Magazine? And more importantly, who is it designed for? So where can people
It is for married wives. It is not for everybody. We do, our next theme issue will be, I think, a lot more for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a great one. But evieprint.com, evieprint.com. Subscribe to Evie Magazine, and then you can also get it at Casa Magazines if you live in New York City.
Yeah, you guys are currently selling a previous edition, right? So where can people buy that as well?
You can also get that on evieprint.com, and you can get it at Casa for the next couple weeks. And then it's gone forever.
Oh, it's gone forever. The beautiful Hannah Nealman Ballerina Farm is on the cover, and you guys did a beautiful spread out at their ranch in Utah about the new American dream. I loved that piece. You guys should absolutely read it.
They have to get it, though, because once it's gone, it's gone. It's like
forever.
a collector's issue, and people are still asking us about the other issues. I'm like, you guys...
Well, I do have them. They're amazing. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous coffee table books. And maybe this one's not for your coffee table, but it is for your sister or best friend's bachelorette party. Brittany, thank you so much for the work that you guys are doing at Evie and working really hard to revive the American family. This is a part we don't often talk about in reviving the family, but is A, wildly important to make families, and B, to keep them loving and healthy and happy moving forward. So very grateful for you.
Kids will like it. You know, kids love seeing their parents in love.
Yes, they sure do. Our daughter lights up when dad comes in the front door and gives mom a kiss at the end of the day. So we love that. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Evie, whether it is the previous edition with Ballerina Farm, Hannah Nealman on the cover, or the sex issue if you have any bachelorette festivities coming up in your next few months. We'll drop the link in the description of today's episode for you guys to figure out where you can get a copy. And we will see you next week.